Welcome to Tidbit Talkin. Have some ideas about a fictional thing, each one featuring different levels of seriousness. Spoilers, here we go. Link has to be almost totally clothing liberated in his resurrection chamber because the revival juice would lose most of its healing power and cause random magical effects if he were totally outfit draped, since all that restoration goodness would be absorbed into said fabric instead. Those Sheikah towers can, and do, bury themselves. Hence the watch for falling rocks coming. They must have the earth elemental equivalent of Cryonis equipped within all of them to accomplish their hide and re-emerge deal. This first glowing view giver having parts akin to steps along the way might have been an intentional design choice on its namesake creator tribe's part, inspired by that thing regarding how some heroes start their journeys as Demon King slay strength-lacking children. The force fields which keep these monks alive must be a mixture of those water, freezing, and other stuff halting runes. These particular Plateau Place 3, meditating together for a century, must have been able to extend a version of this effect upon Hyrule's late king, so he can guide this recently revived righteous rapscallion onto the next journey. While these towers were still active right before Link got sealed, a certain just-mentioned undead monarch must have warped around to prepare for the long-coming days when said just-defeated people saver would rise again. This teleport training would have concluded with making sure his temporary body was still up on the plateau, after that sword-slashing, stake-savering soldier's mystically medical power nap came to an end. Once dead, the only thing that king can do is stuff connected to what's keeping him all regretful and thus ghostly, like setting up simple tests for the rusty hero after return hoopla ensues. The likes of which include putting up an obviously destructible obstacle in front of that shrine, which houses a certain explosive energy doodad providing trial. Angled or otherwise, launching pillars are much safer for vertically changing a lifeform's position than simply falling because they have temporary magical protection enabling thingies and those blue lights adorning them, kind of like some sort of supernatural safety features for workers on construction sites. This warm doublet being rewarded upon a number of challenge-conquering circumstances is because the royal family knows that many different heroes across various millennia have gone about extreme temperature challenge tackling things in a myriad of ways. What spirit orbs are traded for might actually be health stamina junk from past heroes located in the afterlife. In addition to being an enhancement of perfected every Zelda world citizen innate strength growing magic that typically only made heart pieces and containers appear directly during past game events. Perhaps the statues decide to help weaker folks out with such bunk due to how dire Calamity crap spreading across this land has made everything. Hence the support stone scattering being focused mostly upon population centers. A typically superhumanly sturdy sir like Link here's gotta rely on them right now simply because his body's still a tad out of practice and the amnesia also did a number on magical muscle memory. Impa must have been the only visitor King Rome intentionally had on the plateau as he lingered on in spirit form. They kept each other informed about the state of Hyrule and its comatose compassionate combatant's current capability for survival, respectively. A kinda excessive number of shrines and towers getting created must have been done so prospective heroes could be trained to be grand evil toppling worthy, even if some of them got destroyed by that just mentioned vile individual's nefarious forces, as apparently has happened to many of this land's temples over the years. The Sheikah Chief and some others last long due to hospital tech sorcery along the lines of a weaker Resurrection Room variant. Anyway, King Rome didn't have the strength to give out all the details she can before he faded because that country-consuming corruption got really pissed after its eternal nemesis came back. Funky apparatus challenges were inspired by those wacky ancient magic ninjas researching how past saviors would often get distracted by assorted carnival game type deals and consequently yearning to find a way that these things could happen while keeping such folks more on track regarding main mission malarkey. Blood Moon Supercooking is caused by the crimson-hued natural satellite trying to only corrupt creatures currently living and revive their fallen brethren, but encountering an error because a certain super vigorous battle lover is surrounded by beastly bits of all kinds on account of what he snacks on. In other words, Link's eating habits can baffle even the greatest of physics-defying powers. On a related note, most not naturally aquatic creatures don't fare too well in water this time around because they are somewhat more fragile than usual as a side effect of getting brought back to life repeatedly. There's probably a lot more people who can see Hestu and the Korok than Captain Protagonist over here. They just don't want to interact with talking trees because they heard lots of legends about people who did such things and wound up with very little downtime as a result. Mr. Massive Maracas increases inventory space by envisioning the client stuff storing spell being as grand as the great Deku trees in it. Dude won't do more than 2 upgrades before going home because he's hungry and his food ain't available outside there. The Beetle family can't afford a shop vehicle without a surprisingly rich hero constantly buying overpriced wares. Thus, this latest bloodline-selected CEO has to rely only upon his body's own power for money-making after the aforementioned clan couldn't collect loads of rupees from a super monster hunter for over 100 years. For general populace hope-keeping's sake, people must have been encouraged by recurring crisis and knowledgeable royal line connected folks and whatever to sell near the shrine, so at least one champion meeting would be more or less guaranteed. Also, there's likely some practical, intentional construction choice going on regarding him being able to instantly transport to any settlements whenever an enemy invasion happens, as long as that Sheikah slate still works properly. It takes the stronger version, Stasis Plus, to time-stop evil creatures, because such things, all being recently magically reanimated, makes them more regular rule-wrecking resistant than most typical nature cycle following what have yous. More than a little related, Link's simply a good enough person to not want to use it on sinister intention-lacking entities like normal animals acting on basic survival instinct. Blood Moons don't resurrect the fossilized Guardians because they were destroyed before Malice completely took everything over. Impa won't hand over the Champion's tunic until Sir only recalls stabbing-related bits gets at least one memory recovered because she wants to make sure getting reminded about stuff won't trigger some sort of society-dooming mental breakdown. The Springs will even shield a corrupt Guardian from damage by increasing their survival-ensuring power so shrapnel doesn't ruin their pristine waters. Nidra's going over a rather limited flight path while possessed because said scaly deity's remaining bits of sanity are instinctively drawn it towards the associated magic water pond thingy. Anyway, Malice took a hold of it as a side effect of Ganon trying to grip Zelda, another being who's also magically powerful and wisdom associated, the same way she's imprisoning him. His wife isn't really all that jealous, she just wants a cute nickname too. Ancient weaponry isn't lightning strike prone because it's made from a kind of energized stone that actually wards off electrical fields somehow. That trademark protective aura magic of the Lost Woods must have automatically expanded in response to a certain porky Calamity's presence. Sidon sends so many sentries to look out for our Hylian because it's quite hard to see in the rain and total cloud blanketing in addition to that whole big region thing. Apparently, Mr. Once a Thief King's Link-focused hate has grown so intense that his will has been instilled inside Valruda's rain curse power to such a degree that it wears down the plaque speaking highly of the aforementioned well-respected hero more than anything else. That red Lionel atop Ploymus Mountain may be practicing archery as training to take the coveted spot of Colosseum ruler from his rival kin. Revali's cockiness regarding defeating Ganon without being able to wield the Master Sword is because he's heard parts of some legends involving things like silver and light arrows being integral in stopping that just-mentioned Demon King guy. Vom Meadow possesses a particularly potent protective magical shell because being in the upper atmosphere means it has to deal with the most weathercraft nature danger, like lightning and other stormy whatnot. It must be that the Abandoned North is simply a regional dialect kind of name of the area due to how hard it is for non-Gorons to settle here, rather than the mine no longer being in use. This tribe is the only one who talks about his ancient sage somewhat regularly because not having to worry about other lands taking over their volcanic territory has left most historical texts perpetually intact. The painkillers might be ice arrows. It isn't just the sheer might of Daruk's protection overwhelming a regular cannonball that drives off Rudania. What's also going on is that this local imprisoned Divine Beast pilot starts sensing grandson Yunobo, which empowers his spirit enough to influence the evil-controlled ancient creature tank a little bit again. The unwavering bonds between all rock people is what granted Old Stony Champion enough strength to resist Ganon to a point that the Blood Moon can't revive those sentries. Basically, that mystically crimson satellite can only control the controller that makes them, not the things themselves. As he struggled against Sir Dorf's fire blight, Daruk shut these lights off and tied the reactivation to map obtaining because he wanted to give a hint about the blue flame being more important than those regular ones caused by Death Mountain's normal environment to whoever rescued him and or his beast. Another reason for the Rito Champion's cockiness among his peers is because his ability lets him traverse their mechs much easier than they can his. Those more clothy, less metally parts of Flamebreaker armor must be made from Goron hair strands, as they are the only available super flexible thing that's also fireproof. Slab civilians don't know what sharpness means because the only way their rough skin can get hurt is through crushing. Thus they conflate the two. Vilya doesn't shave because that beard helps the Gerudo face mask deal grip and hang on. His name and the purple thong are what made him seem so female to them. It must be illegal to sell Vogue clothing because tradition dictates they only make outfits for their husbands. Also, something dressing like the murder-happy Ganondorf bad. Koga must be using a Yiga knockoff whatever of the Sheikah slate. Their boss's diet must consist purely of mighty bananas, hence him gaining his title despite not being as sturdy as those Blade Master servant folks. Those monks in the extra shrines must have teleported that new song into Cass's notes. Etsukurima's place could very well be the currently featured Old Advanced Society's laser R&D facility. These emblems may be spirit orbs meant for another's soul, hence why our hero can't use them for jack. Major refights aren't Link's recollection of those just experienced battles, but rather memories of what he was imagining his fallen comrades going through, all made real via Sheik attack. Dinral's horn lighting up may be the result of noticing Ritos watching him, triggering memories of witnessing their homegrown protector's greatness. The typically highest flying dragon would just think it's cool a mortal can so easily reach him. This place must have been built during the time Link slept. It's apparently based off data of the other champions losing and the consequently discovered weaknesses of their bulkier beasts. Seemingly that info led to the conclusion crap should be built with blight mimicking fighting styles. Undoing each of those locks must also open up an unseen armory which contains more powerful guardians. Living directly under that Shrine of Resurrection would have augmented this monk's magical meditation in such a way that he gained the strength to actually get up and fight after a century. The various devices doing their thing in this place must have made what's above ground a fair bit warmer than its surroundings, hence why Selmy built her work vacation combo home up here. This sensor was programmed to not detect shrines hidden behind environment trials, such as those within Holy Spring places, so chosen hero folks don't try digging to them with tech or something if they wind up being born as machine lovers. Quests test having locales in harsher places likely used to contain artifacts which would help one traverse the surrounding areas easier. Unfortunately, the things all wound up broken over the years due to maintenance lacking because those malnourished monks couldn't get up and fix them and their buddies were all dead. Strength challenge bots almost definitely got damaged after they tried attacking their base-leading monk masters once malice overtook them. Specifically, those shields and gates getting activated is what wrecked them so much. Eco barriers surrounding some puzzle obstacle joints, like thorns and whatnot, typically completely vanish upon said hurdle building's tackling, because the contained hero tester's meditation is what was keeping the aforementioned stuff intact. Link could use his super speed ability whenever. He just chooses to only do it at greater enemy vulnerability having moments or what have you, so energy consumption doesn't wind up too grandiose. Stasis doesn't work on certain old and worn doors because too much water seeping into them has confused the Slate system and made it think cryonis is what's necessary. But that thing also can't truly do anything because there's not enough moisture available in one spot for the user to properly aim at. This is also why it can't make snow and stuff by messing with the atmosphere. The gut check challenge is so difficult for these Goron bros because grabbing rupees while climbing with their disproportionately tiny hands is actually really tricky. A horse god came into existence due to the strength of constantly reincarnating heroic souls who really loved riding. These various legendary warrior women statues who hold onto emblems similar to non-Gerudo past ages may have trained with folks from other tribes and chosen said imagery for honoring allies associated whatnot. There are lots of blessings in the desert because most of the Sheikah who traveled through it were too exhausted to set up a standard trial-filled structure afterwards. Lots of good loot being present in these Korok places must be because those fun forest folks sometimes gather up gear in the nearby Hyrule Castle. That lost pilgrimage part is seemingly normally just making it through a forest section without any significant landmarks present as opposed to following this fellow. Also, the Deku Tree children are probably forbidden from making good maps of this place so these tests can remain identical forever. There could very well be a mystical aura surrounding fairy fountains that prevents mentally questionable folks like Pikongo from getting near them. It's likely said invisible barrier junk got put up in response to that vile aura which has been consuming the land for a century. External unlocking orbs must contain tech, which befuddles the minds of non-heroic spirit possessors so they don't steal them and render their respective homes sealed forever. Certain people have some resistance though, which enables them to camp out nearby with the things but never stray too far. Second Kakariko Shrine's blessing must have originally been a simple gift for finding a hidden ninja village. This Goron test of ultimate endurance probably came about when those wacky not-rock shinobi were working together with the aforementioned Solid Tribe to find out how better heat-resistant clothing could be made. Basically, everyone wanted to develop an improved version of a certain famous red tunic. Tiflo Ruin's current Dark Forest-surrounded state is intended as a means to test the prospect of an artificial Master Sword and its mystically protective trial. They even foresaw individuals reaching this point in a far future when highways exist, hence the Master Cycle Zero being permitted here. These surviving Shadow Sitters did in fact craft the wild set recently during this journey. They were scanning his measurements with each shrine entered and judging the wear and tear on various outfits donned all throughout. Also, a century's worth of research on how the champion's tunic failed to protect this particular hero is what let them figure out a way to weave cloth so efficiently it's as good as ancient armor. Guardians dropping double cores and other such collectible oddities are probably the result of Blood Moon revivals occasionally causing revival mutations. Zelda having trouble developing healing powers wasn't just because her interest was in science over supernatural stuff. It's also because Ganon was already partially locked up by slightly different magical junk. Even mystical instincts can get confused sometimes, it seems. Everybody had a good deal of trouble demolishing this house because they too struggle with weapon durability. Dodongos going extinct meant their stomach lining couldn't be used to make convection-proof explosive bags anymore, hence the need to develop energy bombs. Somewhat similar, hearts are no longer found lying about because a goofy calamitous spirit rendered certain crops unable to grow, like what they spawned from, for example. Great Fairies chose to focus on upgrades that can be handed over to common folk instead of direct hero body empowering, so lost civilians might have an easier time traveling throughout this extra dangerous countryside. The malice permeating throughout atmospheric crap so thoroughly must render most folks so exhausted when traveling that they normally don't possess enough strength to reach its greatly concentrated goo variants. Kinda related, the strange weather events surrounding them must be what's preventing everybody but Link from verifying those dragons' existence. Also, saying vanished quarks often being magically rendered invisible could simply be a precaution put in place so their mere existence doesn't drive vegetarians insane. Link doesn't really hold up new items with excitement anymore because minor brain damage from his 100-year coma prevents him from feeling like doing so. The weird gooey tech prison Ganon's spirit is held in this time around is structured as such because that Hyrule princess's love of computer science made it manifest that way. Consuming all that guardian material as a makeshift body must be what allowed Pure Power Pig to only get half killed by the divine beasts. Only one post-blast slice would have been necessary under more organic body-filled circumstances. That first battle against this great evil giant mindless incarnation must have initially been waged against a rotten fleshy mass, which subsequently got blown apart by an attack like what was just mentioned. Afterwards, his ashes were spread out too much to recombine into anything other than a gaseous mess. She must have just meant reincarnation purely in a showing up in an actual body right now sense. Discovering her darkness halting skill must be what also let Zelda figure out how to reach ancient family inventory malarkey and grab the Bow of Light. Great Fairies gathering strength from rupees may have something to do with leftover magic from the Mist Realm that bled onto said cache as things were brought over here. Also, the ever-increasing currency demand thing is the result of them needing enough to both maintain present magical defense increases and adding new ones on top. Also, their minions flying between open fountains is what lets them share power with one another and provide identical services. In most cases, the Master Sword drains power from the 3 dungeon-ending artifacts found in its preceding test. Zelda's latent Hylia power is what lets the blade start restoring itself when put back by someone other than Link. Fi knowing all about the Shrine of Resurrection must be because said place's function is based off of how her weapon body normally rests and only works because of that unique connection shared between legendary Sharp Thing and its similarly titled wielder. The normally chatty armament-contained helping spirit wasn't talking because a dead master means she's sad, and sensing a power like demise brought forth even more uneasiness. Considering that Link is there, and Zelda, who inherited the power of, and is descended from Hylia's mortal incarnation, is always watching him during this game's events, the goddess is in fact literally bearing witness to this ceremony. These glowing spots of weakness must be how the sealing spell starts. Lady Lethal Light can bring forth 3 at a time because she's drawing power from each Triforce Peach, which has long been merged with royal family bloodline junk. There are many places with Picori Society referencing names such as the Crennel Hills because when Hyrule maps were last drawn, that whole once-a-century otherworldly portal opening bunk was occurring. Kilton's family must have descended from Skyward Sword's Batman. They probably became obsessed with monsters after learning how their oldest male ancestor used to be one. Also, his bloodline may include the various Dampes. In 2 of the 3 timelines, Linebeck most likely saved the Ocean King's world all by himself. He'd then go back and name areas of his new home after places encountered in said deity's land, just like a dear friend did in another instance of history. In a similar vein to that last thing, 2/3 of temporal varieties must have contained a Colin family who helped Minda defeat a lone acting Zant. Also kinda like this, a couple of cafes would have stopped a Skull Kid who wandered into Termina and then journeyed onto said sympathetic villain's land afterwards to help him get back into the swing of things and find more local friends. Yet another sort of semi-speculative something, the Universal Trio winds up nigh identical in modern times despite greatly varying events up until then because the rampaging beast soul possesses similar killing instincts no matter what life bits are encountered. Basically, it can't help but tear up this land in the same way because it always gets reduced to an identical mindlessness no matter what. Back to more righteousness-connected ideas in this theme, the alternate heroes and other event versions must have worn clothes similar to Link's based on his earliest instances feats, such as those Maku trees making Skyward Sword-esque garments for Ralph or a Brave Subrosion and Labrina and Holodrum respectively, when Trinrova started attacking. The Demise Curse's eternal incarnation junk must be what allows it to try and make a body through force whenever it can't pass on properly. It seemingly favors nature-associated energies though, which might have something to do with their inherent everlasting quality making him form within them more easily. Combining good and evil junk with this thought chain, that wish in Skyward Sword almost definitely wasn't just about immediately ending the current great evil form by dropping that statue. Rather, it also helped ensure an incarnation of grand selflessness or whatever would always emerge to combat the violentness of rebirth, part of which involved restricting its world entry to once per century at most. On that note, but in a flip side sort of way, the Gerudo have innate electrical powers because that aforementioned self-reviving maliciousness god didn't want a repeat of his defeat via getting shocked and stabbed simultaneously. Fee must provide the descriptions of every treasure Link finds. She would also typically tailor each outfit for him, hence why the old clothes always fit him even in worlds where others took up his role. She can do this while far away and still blade contained because her astral projection ability that was used for guiding the first chosen one into sword removing became really powerful after countless millennia. Kinda reverse to this, Girahim's soul remnant as well as its enemy-held weapons instantly resize when going from tiny Boko hands to huge Lionel and or Moblin ones. Calamity again winds up even more hateful than usual because it doesn't have its own memories to counteract the leftover negative feelings of multiple defeats. Man-made tests, which are kinda better at killing Hyrule's protector than the divinely forged ones, had to be brought into play because Demon King Spirit's growing strength made the former's manifesting quite a bit more troublesome. Oh, and they're generally more deadly because those who didn't create life aren't so good at gauging the limits to which can be safely pushed. Also, the ultimate darkness got so mighty because the Triforce hadn't been used for quite a while. The Blood Moon doesn't work when Link goes underground or something because Mize's remnants being unable to sense his presence for a bit weakens hate power enough for an instance of temporary failure or shenanigans. Somewhat related, monsters revive quicker and kinda less strong during previous adventures because Hylia was resurrecting them as extra tests instead of using them for assassination-related purposes. It was all a sorta enemy opportunity hijacking confusing supernatural compromise kinda deal. Speaking of that old goddess, her name wasn't known much until the far future because Skyward Sword Zelda felt awkward about people worshipping her previous form and thus guided others into focusing upon different divine beings. It's only after ancient texts were dug up following this info being lost to time that the lady regained religious relevance. The creation of Darklings might only be possible due to tiny demise soul fragments which forever cling upon heroic essence junk. Ritos are present in every timeline because not all of them came about from Zora's getting transformed. Those ones from Wind Waker's world were simply forced to join up with creatures who naturally evolved from Loftwings. Ganondorf is generally susceptible to the innate evil essence inside him, because even without acolytes such as Twin Rover or Girahim prodding him on, the Gerudo tribe not really knowing how males naturally act as children prevents proper raising from ever occurring. Humorously and loosely connected, Riju sits in a generally considered evil in fiction way within an oversized chair because her throne was made for a much larger person of tyrant-esque behavior who relaxed in such a manner. The other demon kings like Maladus and whatnot must be born with leftover evil energy from Ganon's last slaying. Also, Kome and Kotake helping rewrite their tribe's history for more or less an eternity is what prevented everyone from learning to naturally fear said fellow instead of revering him. Anyway, that Thief King is Demise's preferred new form because gaining at least 1/3 of the Triforce is far closer than what Dude accomplished in his original life. Fee only lets the Master Sword be moved from one location to another, like shifting between Time Temples and Lost Woods for example, when doing so helps ensure that whatever Link is next winds up wielding her. The first Decatry must have came about when Farone blessed Akikwi with great power after leaving mortal realm places. A descendant would later make those original form similar Koroks in various histories as a result of instinctive nostalgia deals. Endings are a pain, but all of you are fantastic. See ya.